Today, my friends, is Armed Forces Day. In 1949, in the spirit of unity, this holiday was created to replace the separate Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force days. This is a day when we come together as a nation to thank those who serve and those who have served in the U.S. military. The men and women of the chaplain service have been a part of the U.S. military since colonial times. There are only 6 rabbi chaplains in the U.S. Navy, and therefore we are very fortunate to be able to welcome as our darshan Navy chaplain, Commander Joel D. Newman. Commander Newman is a rabbi and a career naval officer. He is a graduate of the Jewish Theological Seminary in 1976, and he has been deployed as a chaplain to Somalia, Ecuador, Japan, the Arabian Gulf, Iraq, Afghanistan, and elsewhere to meet the spiritual needs of our service members. In that capacity, he has been a rabbi to children of our congregants, and his cousin Steve is a member of this congregation. Commander Newman, we thank you for your service. We welcome you to Adat Ariel, and it is a pleasure to be able to share the bima with you this morning.
Up. Well, Rabbi, thank you for the invitation to be here and to share the pulpit with you and, of course, with our bar mitzvah as well. So thank you all, and it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. It's the first time with your congregation, and it really is a privilege to be here, especially on Armed Forces Day. As I was reading through the Parsha for the week, and I was fascinated with some of the details and the laws, and there was a verse that said, "Im b'chokotai telechu v'mitzvotai tishmeru v'asitem otam." It begins, "Im b'chokotai telechu." It says, "If you will walk with my statutes." And I thought it was a bit strange to say, "If you walk with my statutes." I was wondering, why isn't God instructing us to do the statutes, to observe the statutes? Instead, we're told to walk with the statutes. And as I thought about it, and my life as a Navy chaplain, the idea of Torah that I bring out to the ships at sea or the Marines in the desert, well, it's all about walking. I try to reintroduce to the sailors and the Marines Judaism by moving forward at a slow and steady pace. And the Judaism that's in my pack does not believe in an all-or-nothing approach. I have to explain to the lone sailor at sea that it might be difficult, probably impossible, to keep kosher while you're on the mess decks in the middle of the Arabian Gulf. But you have to try to avoid pork or shellfish. If you want to fast on Yom Kippur and you're one of those who are taking a flight off the ship out to Afghanistan and it's Yom Kippur, probably not a good idea to fast until you get back. So there's always the adjustments. And some people have said, well, maybe there's some hypocrisy. I think it's being realistic. Hypocrisy is when you pretend to be something that you're not. But being realistic means knowing that no one is perfect, and we all have to just adjust to the circumstances. It's a little strange, I guess, to hear from a conservative rabbi, but since 1775, the chaplains have stood side by side with the troops from the colonial times all the way up until today. I have sounded the shofar in a desert French Foreign Legion outpost called Camp Lemonnier. It's in Djibouti, which none of you would ever have traveled to, and we only hear slightly on the news. About 2,000 Marines are there, and they were thrilled. A rabbi had never come. They said, "We're so excited, a rabbi's coming for Rosh Hashanah." So they got everything prepared. I landed there. It's about 140 degrees all the time. And they said, "Rabbi, we're so excited you're here. We got a shofar for you." So we went into one of the tents to do the service, and they come in, and it's just this horn of a dead animal. They had no idea what it was supposed to be. But because we're working with Christian chaplains and lay leaders, they were just so excited. I still have it. Getting it through customs wasn't that easy, but you got this horn, and it was their idea of supporting the Jewish community. The same as when I went to Saudi Arabia. It's not a welcoming place for Jews. The only way to fly in and out of Saudi Arabia is on military transport, and you can't bring anything Jewish in because they do have customs people. So again, they were just so excited. The rabbi is coming. This was Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. They said, "We got matzah for you, Rabbi." So we go in. There was nothing else for Passover. But if you got matzah, you're good. So they go into the file drawer, and they have this old Ziploc bag of crumbled matzah, but matzah never gets old. So we still had that taste and a little bit of a sample of matzah. For Hanukkah, one of the times, I've been to Iraq for 4 different deployments, but it was on the second deployment to Iraq, we went to celebrate Hanukkah. Now, to get from my base, which was Camp Ramadi, all the way out to this place, it's about a 45-minute drive going 5 miles an hour to Humvee. What was most exciting is you have to cross the Euphrates. And I thought, well, this is cool. As a Jew, I get to go to the Euphrates. This is where Abraham's from. This is good. I didn't realize the bridge is about as wide as this podium here. And we're on a truck, which is a Humvee. Each door is about 600 pounds. And if it rolls off the side into the Euphrates, it might be an interesting way to die, to say he died in the Euphrates, but not what I was looking forward to. Made it all the way down to the outpost where we were going, about 45 minutes away. Very dangerous with the IEDs planted all over, curving back and forth as we're traveling. And I finally got to the building. It was Uday, which was one of the sons of Saddam Hussein. It was his brothel. And I thought, this is great. We're going to be lighting Hanukkah candles in a brothel. It used to be by Uday. So I go inside. They got the Hanukkahs all set up. They asked me to bring candles, which I did. I go inside. I always ask, where are you from? There was one Jew who was there. They said, you're going to light candles with one. I said, that's fine. I said, what's your background? And he said, well, someday I think I want to be Jewish. I thought, wow. So I took the candles out of my pack, and it was so hot that that box you get from the grocery store totally melted into one block. So we had one wick coming out of a block of candles. But it was, and a year later, he and his whole family did convert and to Judaism. I went down with the Marines to Esmeraldas, Ecuador, which was the middle of the jungles. We were doing a medical dental operation. And down there, it was Hanukkah and Christmas. I was the only Jew that went. But we had everybody else was either Catholic or Spanish-speaking Christian. They wanted to know, well, why are you taking this rabbi with you, is what the general asked. They said, because it's my chaplain. And the colonel took me down. I led Christmas carols, which I learned in high school. I was in the choir. And I lit my lone candle as the only Jew in Esmeraldas, Ecuador. One other trip, and I'm only going to mention 2 others, was when I was in Somalia. This is back in '92. I was there for Hanukkah. This is before the Marines came. It was just the United Nations who was there. And I developed a new form of latkes, because there were no latkes in Somalia. Otherwise, we wouldn't have gone if they had food. So we went, but someone had sent Pringles. So if you have never tried Pringles dipped in applesauce, it is the best kind of portable latke that you can travel with. It was wonderful. Then it's been about a month now since I've been back, but this was about the 16th time out into combat. And I just came back from the coast of Pakistan and Oman. There's 2 aircraft carriers off the coast, and I had the privilege of celebrating Passover on both of the carriers as well as one of the smaller ships. And this time, many congregants from around the country were generous enough to send all the different foods out. And what you have to understand when I go to these different places is to be that remote and to be that far separated from everyone that if you just smell the charoset, and I schlepped some wine with me. I went to REI and bought a plastic bottle that wouldn't break and took the wine. So you mix in the manischewitz with the apples and the cinnamon. If you have that smell, it brings everybody back to right here, whether it's your synagogue or any of your home synagogues. It's an amazing experience. Or the first taste of matzah, or we had canned matzah ball soup. On all the ships, we had everything. It's the taste, it's the smell. Some of them were so excited about being able to say the Manishtana. Now, for you, I know it's no big deal. You have your Seder, you do it, and it's an exciting thing. But for them to be out at sea, they just came through the Red Sea. They're now off the coast of Pakistan, and they're able to say the Manishtana. They weren't excited about flying missions into Afghanistan or driving the gigantic aircraft carrier. Instead, they went back, called their grandfather to say, I just did Manishtana on a ship. So who are we? Us chaplains? Well, we are non-combatant officers. We never carry a weapon. We're the moral conscience of the Navy, which was an easy reason for me to come in. We take care of our own, which means wherever there's a Jew, that's where I'm supposed to go. High holidays, Passover, Shabbat, whatever it is. We facilitate for all people that we're with. So I was able to run Christmas services. Just a month ago, I was leading the Easter services as well. We care for everyone, which means we counsel anyone who comes to our office, whatever they might be. And our last obligation is to advise the command. That if the command has a decision, there's nowhere else they can go. They can't talk to someone else and show some insecurity in their leadership, but they can talk to the chaplain. And I've had that many, many times where they'll just be able to turn and say, I just need to talk to you about what's going on here. So after 28 deployments and 15 tours into combat through the Pacific and Bahrain and everywhere else, just to give you a brief idea of what it's like to get ready for some of these times, the first in preparation is to be mentally prepared, where you really can't worry about what's going on at home. In one part, when I first left for Somalia, Steve was running all the services at Camp Pendleton for the Marines. So I knew those I was leaving behind were in good hands, and he was going to run the services for those who were not there. The other part, of course, is my family who's with me today. And I knew that if I was there, everything would be okay at home, even if the garage door breaks or the garbage disposal falls apart. I don't have to worry because I've got a family at home who's looking out for all of us. Physically is the hardest part. I joined when I was 39 years old, and everybody else is about 18. It's 18 to 22. But where they go, you go. Whatever you pack is what you have to live with. So whatever goes inside your bag, and it's usually clothing and boots and all the other things, you go where they go, you travel. There is no valet service when you get off the plane. When we got off in Iraq, it was, I was traveling with the Army that time. It was about a mile or so, but it was this fast-paced walk to get from where the plane drops us off to the camp where we had to go. And you're schlepping with them, except they're about 30 years younger than you are. Finding my flock is always one of the challenges. They're never in a convenient location. The two aircraft carriers are near the Straits of Hormuz, which you see in the map a lot, which is Iran on one side, UAE on the other side. The only way to get there is by plane, and the only way the plane lands on the aircraft carrier is with that little hook that catches the wire as you're going on. And the flight from Bahrain, which is a little island off the coast of Saudi Arabia, it's about 6 hours. And no bathroom, no windows. You just sit, and eventually you have that horrifying landing where you're going 200 miles an hour onto the deck of the flight, on the flight deck, and then you stop within seconds. But that's how we get there. The other way is by helicopter. And throughout, once we get to Afghanistan or Iraq, it's traveling by helicopter. What it's like is almost surreal because you don't have that kind of darkness around here. When you line up to travel in the helicopter, all flights are at night, 2 o'clock in the morning. You follow little chem lights, blue chem lights that they have, because they have snipers and people watching the fields where you are traveling. We travel with everyone else. They don't put on a special helicopter because the rabbi's coming. Where they go, we go. When they go, we go. And it's those long flights where you're wearing your T-shirt, you have your uniform on. On top of that, you put your gloves, your Kevlar, which is this flak jacket, weighs about 38 pounds. You put these 20-pound inserts on the side, and then you put on your pack, your helmet, your goggles, and now you're ready for a nice flight. Everybody does it. Then you have to take the stuff that you want. So one of the camps we went to in Iraq, we wanted apples and honey, so we took a couple cases of apples, and we're ready to go. You never know where you're going or when the helicopter's approaching. Everything is done in pitch dark. And you hear the sound of the helicopter, and then you just put your hand on the person in front of you, and you walk, and you hope you get on the right helicopter, going to the right place. They take a pen and they write on your hand the initials of where you're going, which is a far cry from luggage tags. And they just shine a light on your hand, and when the helicopter lands, they look, and they tell you to get off, and it's a great system because I've never been dropped at the wrong place, which has always been very good. When you get to the camp, it's usually about 2 in the morning, and it's an amazing experience. The first thing I always locate is where's the bathroom, where's the shower, where do I eat, and where's the chapel that I'm going to do my service. And it's just such an interesting experience because there's so few Jews. It's only 2% of the military, but they're so appreciative that if you're coming out for any holiday, they all come out to greet you and to join you in that tent where you're having your service. It was John McCain who said that we're taught to understand correctly that courage is not the absence of fear, but the capacity for action despite your fears. And I think what I've really learned is if there's one Jew waiting, There was a Seder I did for the Patriot batteries in Kuwait, High Holidays in the Pacific, and this past time of Passover in the Pacific. There was one sailor on the USS Cape St. George, just this little teeny boat floating out in the middle of the Gulf. We're not talking the Gulf of Mexico, but it was the Persian Gulf. And there was one Jew who was waiting just to have some matzah. So I flew from the carrier out to the small ship. We did our thing for the whole day. Seder, just a one-on-one kind of Seder, and then flew back to the aircraft carrier for the next location to go to. But I don't think you can really comprehend or understand the fear of what our troops are going through now, where every time you get into a convoy and you travel, you just know that it can't be a good situation, and where you go, there's bad guys who are looking to cause harm. And the same is with the helicopter flights. That the last flight I had out of Afghanistan, as we were taking fire, they shoot these rockets off the side of the helicopter, so it's supposed to distract the missiles that are coming in. And as you sit there and it's doing all that, I think that whole John McCain thing comes into mind, that there's nothing wrong with having absolute fear with what's going on. And the whole helicopter fills with the smoke of the guns that are returning fire. That despite that, you say, you know what, I'll get on the next one, and then we'll go again. And that's what we continue to do. And most people, including my family, have said, well, why do you do it? And I think the reason I did is wherever I've gone over these past 20 years now, wherever I walked up to someone, they always said, thanks, Rabbi, usually preceded by wow. They were just amazed that someone was willing to travel from San Diego to the Persian Gulf and then from the Gulf out to where they were. And we always had that smile, a big hug, and they would meet me halfway to participate in the services. They met me and they left their post to come to do the services because they had a choice. These are Jews that were voting with their feet, and they said, it's important enough to me to say, I want to come to where the rabbi is so we can do the service. Well, in Bechokotai Telechu, it said, if you'll walk with my statutes. And I think that walking is what gets me and my sailor or my Marine closer to God. Now, I've not stood still for the last 21 years waiting for God to come to me. But slow and sure, and bit by bit, I've spanned the globe in, I think, the most remote and dangerous locations on earth, looking for that lone Jew who would also walk with me. And together, I think together in most cases, that together we found God. So I thank you all very much.